Big hello to our parents in Asia. Welcome to our Everything Boarding School video series. For first-time viewers, Everything Boarding School is a community outreach effort to bring the good news of boarding education to all corners of Asia. I'm your host, Daniel Sito. I'm an education consultant and founder and head of Sesame Education. We're conducting our interview today from Singapore, and the topic is, how do you know if your child is ready for junior boarding education? We're very privileged to have with us Mr. Karl, former Director of Secondary School Advising at Eaglebrook School in the United States. Karl, welcome to our show.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much. I feel honored that you've contacted me to share some of my thoughts regarding junior boarding education, which is near and dear to me. I was at Eaglebrook School, believe it or not, for 45 years. And my wife and I arrived at the school in 1976. And I retired in 2021 after 45 years. I raised 3 of my children at Eaglebrook, and I'm happy to say that 2 of them are very involved in teaching and working in boarding schools as well. So it does give me a lot of pleasure to be here to share a little bit on a topic that is relatively new for many families. Many families don't even know junior boarding schools exist. It just has not gotten the recognition over the past few years, but all of a sudden it is becoming more well known. And there are some benefits that I think would be nice to share today for families.
Yes, and let's get straight into this topic. Would you please give us a basic 101 introduction, Karl? I mean, what are junior boarding schools? What is the usual age range? What is the usual student size range of those schools for our viewers to get a very quick, up-to-date understanding of what this is all about?
Well, the junior boarding school idea is basically, it's a middle school program. And many junior boarding schools, there's a range, and every school is unique to itself. There are some schools that have a day program that begins in kindergarten. So again, you could be at a junior boarding school that has a day program right up to grades 5 or 6, and then they all of a sudden will open a boarding program. So you're going to see a variety of approaches. You'll see some that are all boys. You'll see some that are co-ed, but most of the overall curriculum is devoted to a middle school education, grades 6, 7, and 8. But we also, which is unique, many of these junior boarding schools go through the 9th grade year as well. So in other words, the freshman year of secondary level is and can be done at a junior boarding school. There's many of us that have a 9th grade program that we're all very proud of. It is an opportunity for boys and girls to share that leadership situation a little bit easier as a 9th grader because they would be the oldest in the schools. So they are all of a sudden taking on a role that they're going to eventually find at the secondary level. Along with that, there is an umbrella which is pretty wide, because at a junior boarding school, you're going to see your youngster involved in obviously academics. You will see them involved in extracurriculars, sports in the afternoon, as well as an opportunity to try new and engaging activities in arts, music, whatever areas that a student or a family may wish to pursue. Generally, those curriculum is available at all of our junior boarding schools. But the biggest, I think, quality of the junior boarding school is that idea that I mentioned regarding the leadership that is being able to be cultivated and brought out with our students, because they are all of a sudden in a role of leadership as a 9th grader versus where they might be right at the lower level of the 9th grade entry at a secondary school. So they don't have that leadership opportunity as much if they move off to a secondary school at the 9th grade year.
And it's interesting. I mean, when we talk about leadership, I would say it's a hallmark to American boarding education in general, not just junior boarding or senior boarding. That is really central to American education, and it is very unique.
Well, it is, and I would say it's one of the biggest priorities of what we do at the middle school level. I think it takes time for students to gain that opportunity to be a leader. And there's so many opportunities at a junior boarding school for a student to take some initiative, to take a more active role in their dormitory, whether it's through being a leader in the dorm as a proctor. Also athletically, you have an opportunity to gain some captainships for various teams. There's also opportunities on weekends where you can be helpful with faculty on community service. So there's a variety of approaches that brings this leadership out during those critical middle school years. And I would say It sounds biased, and I admit that, but the amount of money that is spent for middle school education is the best you can possibly do, because it will provide your youngster that safe, secure environment where they can still be a child and a youngster, where they don't have to put a lot of pressure on themselves to all of a sudden start to meet a certain curriculum and a certain role at the secondary level. It's just an easier environment. It's an atmosphere that is one that is relaxed, but it's also an atmosphere where students are allowed to have that fun time as a young boy or young woman, and as well as not having the pressures of academics on a daily, hourly basis.
It's interesting when you mentioned about early on, there are co-ed schools, and also boys schools, meaning that there are no junior boarding girls schools yet, at least not in America. And I would like to, drill deeper upon that question, but expanding it a little more on the background within the junior boarding school world in the United States. What types are there? I mean, how do they differentiate one another? I mean, what do they offer differently or similarly?
There's a lot of similarity, but as it is with the secondary school education and secondary schools in the U.S., so much depends on where they're located. We have a school called Pheasant School over in Newton, Massachusetts, very, very close to Boston. Also a larger area where they're primarily day, but they have a nice boarding population. So a lot of it will depend on the actual location of the school, what that environment will allow that school to focus on. Obviously, your northern schools, your Cardigan Mountain, your Eaglebrook School, there's opportunity for winter sports where you might not see that in some schools. So I think from that point of view, depending on location and the geography that the school is founded and where it resides, is going to dictate some of the curriculum that you're going to see. The idea of a single-sex school where you have an all-boy environment or an all-girl environment. We do have co-ed schools, so there are junior boarding school girls out there. I've never really, to be honest with you, in all the time I was at Eaglebrook, never really heard of any type of attempt to start a junior boarding school for just girls. I think the girls that we're seeing at Fay and some of the other co-ed junior boarding schools, they're meeting that need for girls to have that opportunity to board before the secondary school career begins. But I think the number of girls are somewhat limited to where a number of boys are. And having two daughters myself, I'm not sure if I wanted to send my daughters away to junior boarding school at that point as a boarding student. It's not that they couldn't have handled it. I'm sure they would have done an outstanding job. But the point being is that we tend to want to make sure we're sending our daughters off to a nice, safe, secure environment. And I think it's the demand by the girls is not quite as much there as it is for the boys. But we do feel very good about the fact that we have those great schools. Bement is particularly strong in that area. Fay School, we have Rectory schools. So there's junior boarding schools out there, and I would encourage families to really just take a look at the website, find these schools, see what they're all about, and that will answer a lot of questions with regards to, is my daughter or is my son ready to take on a junior boarding school lifestyle?
Hey, Karl, I would like to, if I may, inquire a little bit further about the different focus between single-gender junior boarding schools, the boys' schools, versus the co-ed schools. In terms of the experience of, let's say, the boy, how would that experience be different in a co-ed environment versus a boys-only environment?
That's a question that's asked a lot, and I'll be very candid on it. I think boys tend to be a little bit more shy and not as outgoing around girls, particularly in the classroom. Middle school, junior boarding school girls are always smarter than boys. So I think we see boys coming out of their shell a little bit more. They're more vocal. They're more open to involving themselves in class discussions. I think they're feeling more comfortable in a variety of ways. I think, again, there's a strong case, and I have to look at it from the vantage point that I had for all the time I was at Eaglebrook from a single-sex boys' school. But I know the co-ed junior boarding schools out there do a fantastic job with having that co-ed setting. But there's no doubt it's different. There's clearly a difference. Eaglebrook has a summer program, which is co-ed, which I was part of for a few years. And there was a definite different feel when we had girls on campus with the boys that we also had on campus. So I think I think it's just it allows boys to have more confidence and to more or less step up their game with contributing to class discussions and to being involved academically. I think that's the biggest difference. I think it allows boys to just take a greater amount of time and acceptance of where they are in that classroom.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to next phrase the question in terms of asking about the difference between junior boarding schools and senior boarding schools. So obviously the age will be different. One is more on the middle school age range, the other is the high school age range. But I would like to get some sense, but both of them are boarding, right? So in a nutshell, what are junior boarding schools aiming to do? And in general, what are senior boarding schools aiming to do?
The difference between a junior boarding environment and a secondary environment is you're going to see more supervision, you're going to see more structure at the junior boarding or middle school level for students, which they need at that age level. Middle school kids need structure. They need to know that they can go to their teacher and find that support and that help, as well as being initiated by the teacher. Many students, some of our stronger students are going to be self-motivated. They're going to go out there and they're going to go find that teacher when they're struggling with a particular homework assignment or a reading assignment. But we will encourage that student more so than waiting for them to come to us. So I think the one thing we're trying to do is to get them to that independent level where they're making decisions that are benefiting themselves. So many students are out to please their parents. I want to really, do a great job in this class, hopefully maybe earn an A or a high B or something, because I know my parents will be proud of me. They want to please their teachers. That's the main thing that I see with the primary program of a junior boarding level. I think at the secondary level, 16 and 17-year-old boys and girls don't want to have adults as much in their life. And that's at the next level. But we're also hoping and guiding our students to say they want to be more independent at the next level. They're expected to be more independent level. They're not going to have quite the supervision that we have at our level. Our teachers start their day at 7 a.m. and end at 11 o'clock at night. We're checking in with our kids at the middle school level. We want to know how their day went. We want to know how their classes are going. And we'll have those general conversations at the middle school level. You'll have that to a certain degree at secondary school, but secondary school is going to be a faster pace. There's going to be a little bit more emphasis on college placement and how they're building to that very important junior year at secondary level to increase their chances for certain placement at certain colleges. So there's a different feel, and it should be a different feel. You're dealing with older kids. They're going to take on more responsibility. We're going to expect more out of them than we are a 6th or 7th grader at the junior boarding level. So I think that the major difference is you're going to see a lot of structure, a lot of good supervision, a lot of good guidance. All of that will carry over to the secondary level, but not to the degree and the extent that you're going to see at the middle school level.
So how do junior boarding schools prepare their students for the secondary boarding school destinations?
And this might be one of the key discussion items for families when they're considering when to send their child away to boarding school. Is my child ready to go as a 6th grader or a 7th grader to a junior boarding school? We see many families feeling comfortable at the 16, 17, 18 years old kid going off on their own and finding their way in an environment like any kind of secondary school. So I think the decision is the readiness of the youngster to move into the junior boarding school. The case to make for a junior boarding school level will be one, what's the options that the family and the student has at home? If those options are strong, it makes a case maybe not to send them off to junior boarding school. But if those options are not as strong and they're not focused to the curriculum, and we're seeing a lot of curriculum change over the last year to 2 years, they're looking for certain qualities that the curriculum is going to bring that their school at home may not be able to offer them. I think, too, that again, it's going to strive to bring that independence out in that youngster by going at that age level. I think they're also surrounded by teachers who care. And again, I'm not saying secondary schools teachers don't care. That's not the case whatsoever. But there's a different relationship with a 7th grader than there is with a 10th or an 11th grader. And I think that's where you want to have that benefit of confidence building, outstanding teaching in small classes, maybe 12 to 13, 14 kids in a class at the junior boarding level. I think the fact is that it's going to give that student the confidence to jump into a older environment by having either that ninth grade experience or if they decide to leave after the eighth grade experience for secondary school. So it is hard to give up your youngster at that age level.
Yes, indeed.
I think that's a challenge. But the quality time that you will have with your child, in the sense that the good cop will be you guys as parents, the bad cop will be us teachers and what the middle school or what the curriculum is or the control that we have there. So I think quality time with your youngster improves with having that boarding option where you can visit the school almost any day and time you want. They're never going to shut the doors to say parents can't be on campus. But it also allows the student to have some decision making without leaning on their parent and wondering if should I do this or shouldn't I do it. They're going to have those types of decisions almost on a daily basis. And those are good decisions that they're making because they've got good follow through with their faculty on the campus as well as their advisors. So, going to a junior boarding school is going to give that youngster a completely different attitude towards their journey through their career academically.
You touch upon a very interesting point about the parents. From our experience out here in the field over the years, regarding to junior boarding school cases, we have noticed that it's more often that it is the parents who are unwilling to let go rather than the child not fit for junior boarding education. So the child could, in many cases, they would thrive and they are actually quite ready and the child really wants to go, but it is the parents who didn't want to let go of the baby. So you touch upon a very interesting aspect.
It's a big decision. And I did admissions during my career at Eaglebrook as well. And this was the type of discussion we had with parents. Karl, when is the best time to send our son? Is it sixth grade? Is it seventh grade? Should he come in for a 2-year experience? Does he repeat? Does he take an extra year or reclassify where he might be a sixth grader applying for Eaglebrook or another junior boarding school? Does he apply for seventh grade or does he take an extra year? And we see that type of maturity, particularly for boys, that is needed, where that extra year only give that youngster more confidence. It's going to put him in an older age bracket for a variety of good reasons. So, it is a big decision. It's one that I don't think you'll see any admissions office from a junior boarding school twisting your arm to say you've got to send your son or daughter. But it is something that once families step into that world, they're extremely appreciative of what the school has done for their child, just from a maturity level, from a confidence level, and from an academic point of view. So I think, it's difficult, and there's no place better than home. And they're going to be making a major sacrifice, that student that is going to be going off at that age level. They're leaving their pet at home. They're leaving a younger sibling at home that they're very close to. They may not be on their tech as much at a junior boarding school that they might be at home. So there's a lot of sacrifices that youngster is making by coming into a more structured environment. But the benefits clearly in the long run outweigh some of the possible challenges.
So Karl, with your years of helping families, advising them and placing the students into senior boarding schools, what do you see as what senior boarding schools look for in their incoming students? What are they looking for? What type of students are they looking for? And as a whole, how do junior boarding schools, because it's boarding, right? How do they try to leverage on the fact that they are providing a boarding education to the students? And how would they allow the students to develop maybe a little bit more of an edge over their day school peers?
It is the most challenging question I think you can ask as to what secondary schools are looking for, or what the admissions office may be looking for in a student or a candidate that's going to come. The range of students that are admitted to so many schools is surprising for some parents when we start this process. And I think the idea being that schools are seeking individuals who are going to come in and make an impact with their particular curriculum, or how are we going to become a better school by admitting this particular student. It's not all about scores. It's not all about grades. That can be somewhat confusing to parents. My son is an A student. He's got a high score on the SSATs. He's taken a very challenging curriculum. Why can't he gain admission or she gain admission to the school of their choice? Well, it would be nice if it was that simple. And if it came down to just scores and grades, there's a lot of us that wouldn't be in this world, because that would be dictating what schools are going to be admitting and what schools are bringing what type of kids in. So, there is a range of students that these schools are seeking. It could be a student who has a strong affinity for the arts and wants to get involved in their drama program and has been involved in drama since grade 3, maybe, so they're looking at someone who's got that particular interest. I'm not a big passion guy in the sense of for the middle school level, because what 12-year-old or 13-year-old can we say has a passion for whatever the activity may be? I do see passion at the secondary level, and I think secondary school admission offices are recognizing and appreciative of those students and candidates who are coming to them that have a passion for the arts or have a passion for a particular sport or an academic endeavor. So I think there certainly schools are seeking as broad a range of students as they can. And there could be reasons that a student may be gaining admission simply because of where they're from. It's a geographic decision. And they may take a look at where that youngster is living and with the community and the connections that family may have with respect to their community, and looking for the same idea for their youngster to try to find the appropriate community and environment for their son or daughter at the secondary level. I think we're trying to definitely bring our candidates to a point where they're going to be recognized for what they've done, who they are, and what the potential that they have to continue on that path at the secondary level. We want to have students that are inspired with learning, are eager to put their best foot forward academically, as well as commit to a community and a community outreach. So it's a complex question. I think it is the most asked question when families are starting this process as to, well, what is this school looking for this year? Well, this year it might be squash players. Next year, it could be the tennis program. Or it could be the chorus. There's going to be a variety of approaches. There is just not one single answer to say, this is how you're going to be able to gain admission to a school. Does a junior boarding school student have an edge for gaining admission to a top secondary school? I think it's safe to say yes, but I don't think it's the end all. And I don't think you can look at the junior boarding school education and say, well, because we're going to this particular school, it should make his or her path easier to go on to a very highly competitive secondary school. I think the one thing that I have found with families over the years is that they're fine with their secondary school placement by the time everything is said and done, for the most part. But they're even more impressed with the experience that their child has had at the junior boarding school level. And we are disappointed for our students. It's the same thing at the college level when they're doing their college placement. We work closely with these students. We get to know them. We get to know their families. We get to know their aspirations. So we take it very personally. And when that ideal school doesn't come through for that youngster, it doesn't mean the youngster's failed. It doesn't mean the school has failed. It means that you're walking into a process which is highly competitive. Indeed. And as I've said in the past, there's some challenges with the process. So I think with that, we're focusing on the experience. We're going to take that experience to the next level, hopefully, and continue it on for even beyond the secondary school years.
For those families who are now considering the possibility of sending their child to a junior boarding school, and I would like to learn how they can continue to stay in touch with their child after the child has begun junior boarding education. One very common concern among parents is that once they send the child away, have they lost their child? So I would like the viewers to learn from you how junior boarding schools kind of mitigate that risk or that even myth of kind of losing the child.
I think it's one of the things that changed the most in my 45 years at Eaglebrook from the beginning. Parents weren't able to stay in touch with their children that much in those early days when I got there in 1976 and even through the 80s. Look at what we have for communication opportunities right now. I mean, sometimes parents are finding out things before we can even get to the parent to talk about something because the student has already relayed the situation. So, I mean, with phones, that opened up a whole new world of communication for their youngster. I mean, I remember when we lived in the dorm that we would have to make certain times available for parents, whether they were overseas or whether they were on the West Coast. And we'd say, okay, why don't you call Sundays at 8 o'clock and we'll make sure the phone is available so you can talk to your son. Now kids are calling their parents, walking up from sports to go to their dorm. They're in constant communication. Schools have opened their doors far more than they did 35, 40 years ago, where parents are welcome to be on campus. That's where the quality time comes in, because your son or daughter is going to be able to share their successes with them, whereas maybe that doesn't happen quite as much at home on a daily basis. But they're so excited about a job well done. So I think the communication works both ways, and schools are very open to parents being involved. We want parents involved. We want them to attend our parent weekends that are offered. We want them to come to games. We want them to come to concerts. We want them to be involved as much as they possibly can be. I don't think you're losing your child at all. I think in one way you're gaining a better sense of your child by having this experience and this opportunity for them, because you're starting to see where they're going to grow on their own with good guidance and good support. And again, those car rides home when you pick them up for a Thanksgiving vacation, the time spent in the car, the time that you're home. I mean, middle school kids just want to please. They really do, in spite of what some people may think. They're excited. They want to share their successes with their parents, and they're going to do it as often and as easily as they can. So I think from that point of view, yes, 30 years ago, I'd say it might be challenging to communicate with your youngster on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. But today, almost maybe too much communication with parent and student, but that's all good. We want that to be developed between the family. And I think it's because of the natural enthusiasm of the student wanting to share those good times with their parents. As we always say, happy parents are, happy kids are happy parents. And
Indeed.
Sometimes it's a very different story, because they may be saying the food is terrible here, and the kid goes back every day for four opportunities. So, for extras. So, I mean, sometimes the message is a little skewed, but we know, no, Johnny's eating really well. As a matter of fact, he's at my table in the dining hall. He had three portions today at supper. So he didn't think the food was all that bad. So, advisors and adults will be there to clarify any kind of concerns that students might be sharing with their families. And we want parents to share those concerns with us as well. It's very important that if a parent hears something that the student is under stress or pressure, or where we can be helpful, we need to have that communication with parents, as well as them having that communication with us.
Hey, Karl, if there's one thing that you would like the viewers to take away with respect to junior boarding education, what would that be? Believe
it or not, I'd say, and this might vary a little bit with age, trust your youngster. If they really are excited about pursuing a junior boarding school education or a secondary boarding education, listen to them, trust them. Why are they doing that? You'll be surprised. They want a fresh start. They want a clean slate. They may want to begin anew in a new curriculum. Kids are pretty savvy today. In some ways, almost too grown up too soon. You may have your ideal school for your youngster. This youngster may have a completely different approach to a school that you have. And I think you've got to trust the instincts of your child and know that they're making decisions that are hopefully based on good, sound reasons. I think if they're looking at a junior boarding school and they're excited because they saw, soda machines on the floor, and I want to go there because I know I can get a soda every day. Well, that's kind of a weak reason to maybe consider a particular school. But I do think you've got to listen to your youngster and explore the reasons why, and go visit one. I mean, there's no commitment by you calling up and making an appointment to say, hey, we'd love to swing by and see what your campus is all about, and just talk a little bit about what you might be able to do for my youngster. So, you go, you see a few schools, and you make your decision. Your youngster will make the decision. No, this is not for me. I don't want any part of it. Or they may say, I've got to come here. That's what I would like you to do, is don't write it off. No, he's not ready. She's not ready. We don't want to give them up. They're too young. Okay, totally solid reasons to consider and question the idea about going away. But give them the benefit of the doubt and say, let's go take a look. You will be surprised how excited they will be when they tour a junior boarding school campus. And I don't care what the school is. All of our campuses are gorgeous. All of our campuses are student and kid friendly. They will walk away with their eyes wide open if you take the time to visit and just get a sense of it. And if it's a go, great. And if it's, well, we're going to hold off a year or two, that's fine too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karl, for sharing with us today on Everything Boarding School.
Again, I hope, as I always do, I've talked way too much, but hopefully my excitement for middle school and the idea of junior boarding schools at least came through with my answers. I think it's a great opportunity, and hopefully your youngster will be able to take advantage of that as well.
Yes, we all feel the passion through your words, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay.
And we look forward to having you with us again.
Terrific. Be more than happy.
Hey, to all viewers out there, if you have enjoyed what we have shared today and would like to learn more from us, please remember to click like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on Everything Boarding School. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, happy boarding school hunting. Cheers.